What's going on, my creative collective? Welcome to your daily creative reading for October 7th. Let's dive in. Okay, let's see where the cards take us today. All right. Spirit, what messages do you have for my daily creatives for October 7th? Messages for October 7th. Eruption of Light. Ooh. This almost reminds me, it's like this phenomenon that happens in winter. It's like these like light pillars in the sky. Hang on. Sorry, folks. You can see my handprint. There we go. The camera was a little weird. Anyways, I feel like it's off. Oh, sweet Lord. There we go. Okay. I'm not going to edit that out. That's fine. Anyway, yeah, these like pillars of light, because it's so cold and there's like ice crystals in the air and in the atmosphere. So they create this like interesting light formation. Could be a way that you're shining your light. And it's like a marvel through the seasons. Knowing without knowing. Little High Priestess vibes on that one. Oh, I'm not saying that. Well, okay, whatever. It's... So this could be related to the way that you are out in the world and then privately. But I heard High Priestess on the streets, or Hierophant on the streets, and High Priestess in the sheets. And that's not meant like anything. It's not. I'm a little bit embarrassed, but the way it's coming across is like the way you are privately and the way that energies serve you externally. So it's like, without knowing, and there's this like eruption of light. This strikes me as like this feminine energy, or I should say like the receptor. There's like this receptive energy where it's like your guard comes down and you become a container for something more. So this could be a way that you are at like in the home space, or a way that you're nurturing energy differently, and the light within yourself and others. What was on the bottom here? The temple. Yeah, it's like this is almost striking me as like the home. Your home is temple, or the places that you spend the most time. Like, how are you making them sacred with your presence, and how are you making them sacred with your High Priestess energy? As opposed to the institutionality of the places that you just go on a frequent basis, like the Hierophant, right? So it's like honoring both energies and the way that they can like inflect, like what I'm seeing is a droplet of like the concentrated flavor for water. I just have water plain like as it is, but like people squirt those things into water and then it flavors it. I'm seeing that, but like the essence of you inflecting your energy in a space. Like, how do you want to show up, right? Recently I had an opportunity to ask myself, like, am I showing up in the best way possible that honors my integrity, as opposed to just honoring the regularity of a specific behavior in a place, right? And my answer was not great. So it's like doing the work, right? To make myself show up in integrity, because otherwise it just like it binds your energy in a way that doesn't allow it to flow. When that happens, it sort of blocks not just your creative capacity, but because you're not really taking responsibility for your energy, it also means that you become unconscious. And that's like, it's like you become unconscious, but it's like you're showing up differently. Like, this is you transforming into being very aware and conscious. Like, the Death card doesn't show up out of this unconscious energy. Like, it's this shift. I'm going to take these out actually. Oh, and there's the High Priestess. Of course. Why wouldn't there be? High Priestess, Death, and Eight of Swords. And it's like it's showing up as this like transitional energy from unconscious to very aware. But there's this bridge, right? It's like this, I get almost this is like a consciousness bridge that you're building for yourself, or that you're daring to cross. Daring to cross me, you adventure, you. But it's with this, the call is something, it's going deeper. It's going deeper. And I feel like that's like, this is almost like a flare that your soul is putting up. I'm hearing a lightsaber. It's like a flare that your soul is putting up and saying, this is the way to go. Like, this is the path that we need to be on. So it could be that if you look for signposts, the knowing without knowing is how you're going to get to this inner temple. I feel like that's gotta be a thing. Maybe Thomas More talks about that. If it's others, I can't remember the titles. I am very sorry, but take a look. But that idea of going like this descent into the inner temple, as opposed to this like willful unawareness of how you're showing up. And like the death card shows up and shows out, right? Like it's not like teehee, I'm going to sneak. The death card is like in your face, because that's the nature of the transformation within it. And the high priestess is this beautiful subtle energy therein. I mean, this is also, it's not always like in your face, but the way it's showing up here is because there's been something that you're not facing, or that's where this call is coming through, where it's like, let me just clarify this for a second here. I'm going to use a different deck though. Spirit, can you clarify this? Is this to do with, like, is this a way that we're showing up, or is this a particular relationship, or, so I think this has to do with a specific, it's like a way that we are engaging, right? It's like a little bit, I'm hearing hot and cold. Like it's like hot and cold. What is the reason for that? Yeah, see, hot and cold. Yeah. Okay, like really? And then the high priestess showed up again. And that's where it's like maybe not trusting your intuition kind of burned you in the past. So it's like you have this very protective energy, but the transformation is that, and sometimes we can remain unconscious, because if we adopt more shame and guilt and we just like, it becomes a habit, so that like almost associated with, it's like an impulse, right? The Knight of Wands is an impulse energy, impulsive, but it's also our creative impulse. So instead of feeling creative sparks and going, and being curious about it, if we've been conditioned to feel shame, we can shut down these beautiful intuitive hits or inclinations, or like these subtle whispers. And I feel like that's what you're transforming here. And that's why it's in your face, because it's in your face, but it's not, because it's happening in here, right? It's this transformation from within that is starting, if not already underway, where you're facing things. That's the call to adventure here. So it's like what you're becoming aware of is your depth. What you're becoming aware of is your capacity for something so much deeper than what you've been allowing yourself to experience. And it could just be playing safe. But I'm getting that there's an energy here of releasing the safety, releasing the safe harbor. Releasing the safe harbor. What's the refusal here, Spirit? Yeah. And it's okay. This is like, we don't go into a Two of Swords for nothing. And sometimes it's like a reaction that's done for safety purposes, right? When you're taught not to trust yourself, or people shame you for trusting yourself or showing up as yourself, this is truths, right? These truths that we're not just uncertain of, but that maybe we doubt ourselves, right? So we're like, nope, Two of Swords. And it's not that it's a bad thing, but when you go into that does become a refusal. You refuse to change. You refuse to choose like life for yourself. This is choosing the opposite of life affirming and life giving, because it's like this reductive energy that you're kind of in with this Four of Pentacles, right? So it retracts and makes it difficult for you to move forward, not because, intuition shows up, but it's how effectively you're able to integrate it. I'm learning that right now. And, I think we all learn different depths of this, but it's like how effectively, like, and not even effectively, it's like the degree to which you're able to hear your intuition and trust it is also the degree that you've made friends with the shame that you feel about specific things. Because sometimes your natural inclination, based on your intuition, will move you in a direction that you felt shame about previously. So you have to meet it. You have to meet the shame and look at it. Don't run from it. I experienced this recently where it wasn't like a full-blown dark night, but there's certain negative emotions that when they get really intense and you just keep pushing them away, you become an Eight of Swords, in an Eight of Swords energy towards the totality of your life. So the call is to sink deeply into those emotions. Don't run from them. Do it safely though. Get professional help if you need, and don't deny it and say like, I don't need that, and then actually need it. Trust when you need it. You deserve that. You deserve someone who's able to carry the light beside you and with you, right? In all areas of your life. And not saying, turn partners into therapists. It's not like that. I'm saying we all have different torchbearers around us, and we ourselves are, right? We don't necessarily need to be lighthouses, because that's like, that requires a storm. But sometimes what we become is these torchbearers based on how we live our lives, right? So don't deny yourself guidance that comes from different sources, right? Is all that I'm saying, basically. But this Two of Swords is, I think, an invitation to go within. And when we're most confused, we actually know the answer. When we're the most confused, we actually have a clue. We have many free clues, actually. But it's transforming confusion into something more through what you know to be true. The High Priestess is also a sort of intended to be a non-speaking card, right? The High Priestess is quiet about things. This is an observing card, trusting what you observe and trusting yourself to know what to do with it. I really like these two cards together. I've said it before, the Death card is one of my favorites in the entire freaking deck because of the transformation and the transformative capacity. I see it as regenerative, right? Especially when it's with the High Priestess as your call to adventure and maybe a call to action. And that's, yeah, like the Ace of Wands on the bottom. This is like not trusting, not knowing what path to take, what new, like what, it's like not trusting your spark, not trusting your fire. And the way that we don't trust our fire and we disconnect from it, and that's exactly the story here. Thank you, Spirit. Right? Not trusting it. And it's like we ground it because we don't want it to run away with things. But the reason we don't trust it is because we've been taught to disconnect from it, right? So trust that. Trust your instincts. Can you tell me a little bit about the Tower that could become unchecked? Yeah. So the Seven of Pentacles, this is very much like a, okay, like, what are we doing here, right? Like it's almost like you're a bit annoyed perhaps with yourself. What's on the energy at the bottom? Yeah. It's almost like you're a bit annoyed with yourself, but you need to take this time. And I think the reason why it could become a Tower is it could frustrate your energy and leave it in an even, it can anchor it from a 2 into an 8, where it's like you're only a little bit confused. You have more power than you think always, but this takes more empowerment and lessens it and binds it to constriction, right? And to really playing small. So it's like you just step out of the game altogether. And I think that's what can happen is like when you don't see enough, your yardstick has to change is what I'm hearing. Your yardstick, your metrics, your key performance indicators, if this is work related, they have to change. Something's got to shift out of the old so that you can bring in this new, because the Death card is signifying something new wanting to emerge. So if your metrics for success have been specific things and they've been more vanity focused, it will help you to, it would behoove you to connect to something a little bit deeper in terms of how do you measure success? How do you know that you've achieved a goal? How do you know that something is right and that you're on the right path? You know, as part of the package that I put in the comments or wherever on this channel once before was, it's like one of the things that I put into place when I, have big goals and I'm aligned with them. How do I know that I've reached them? And I think that's sort of what you're being called to ask yourself, is because you can really frustrate your energy because you could have achieved a goal, but then if you don't have clarity on what that means in relationships too, when you set goals in relationships and say, I think it would be great if we got, and this is like for long-term commitments, for people who are dating casually, I don't imagine that this would come up. I'm into more depth myself, so this is the kind of thing where I'm like, hey, this is what I would like, But anyways, this is an energy of also like, what are the goals that you want to share in a relationship? What are the things that you want to experience together, right? And this isn't just about like, specific events or things like that. This is like, I want to create this kind of relationship and I want this quality of communication, and being honest about like, are we there, or have we established that basis yet? Yes, no, or and if not, then saying, how do we get there? That's where you're working towards something together. Sometimes it's like a vacation, other times it's something actual and like concrete on a home. Like those types of things can all be goals that you can work towards, but it's regardless of whether this is actual workplace, projects, business, or relationship. I feel like this is about reassessing how you assess success. Yeah. But this is really about looking at how you show up and what that means to you. So it's like clarifying your goals, because there's new stuff here. And if you haven't been able to accurately assess and measure your previous successes, because these are all muddied waters, you won't know what opportunities to choose or what opportunities are even in front of you, because your success metrics need to catch up to that thing. Your success metrics need to be at and in alignment with that other thing. That other thing. So specific. Yeah. And that's just it. It's so if you've been feeling at all, I wanted to say left out in the cold, and I do see that here, but it's not at the bottom, so I'll leave it. But it's like if you've been feeling like you haven't been receiving and giving in equal measure with one another, it's like this is a call to say, like, your protagonist energy in this hero's journey spread is really getting familiar with what it is that you want by virtue of saying and don't think in outcomes all the time, because that can be really unhealthy, because sometimes you have to enjoy the journey, right? But you have to get clear on where you're going, otherwise you will waste gas, you will have no idea. So having some kind of clarity in that way will also help you to feel like you're not only giving, but given to, because people know where to meet you on that journey, and it can clarify what you need as well. So if you have point A and point B, someone knows that you're heading to point B and that you might need, like, I think about this, what's coming to mind is like runners in a race, right? Where it's like you have somebody at different set points or points throughout the race giving water and snacks and, towels or whatever to wipe your face and doing first aid check-ins, all those things. Like, that's like through your whole life, and it, and the macro, and then in the micro, when you have specific goals that you're moving towards, that also helps too. And it also helps to connect you with cheerleaders. This is coming across as like cheerleading energy too, right? Sharing emotional investments, sharing things that you invest in mutually emotionally. So it's like, how can someone meet you on the path if you don't know what success even means to you, right? Because then it means that you take a more passive approach where it's like whatever happens. And that is my pet peeve. It's one of my pet peeves. Because we don't Sunday drive through life, right? We Sunday drive as a way to decompress. But when you Sunday drive through life, whatever comes. And that passivity doesn't, some people are good with it and that works for them. And I'm not here to knock that. I have so much fire that it's like, I can't, I have to have, I guess it's possibly the Sagittarian energy, but it needs to be like goal oriented. There has to be something that we're moving towards, while also respecting the need to do nothing, right, from time to time. So there's balance, right? That's the Six of Pentacles. This is the balance. But it's just understanding that your value is also not measured. This is where, when we get clear about context and how we're measuring success, we don't take the yardstick for relationships and apply it to work. We don't take the yardstick for work and apply it to relationships, because that doesn't work, right? If you're an emperor at work and then coming into your relationship as an emperor, when does your empress get to blossom, right? When does that energy get to just be? When does that energy get to express and take root and flower and all of this, right? So it's balancing these energies. But if your yardsticks aren't clear, your energy will be frustrated with itself, and that will become a tower through health. That will become a tower through the quality of your relationships. That will become a tower through any number of things, because it's a lack of clarity that makes it really hard for you to also feel given to, right? That's not just like, oh, that itself is a love language. No, it's not just that. That is the entire structure of how you receive love. So if you can't receive words of affirmation if you don't know that they're important to you, if you don't understand where they're important to you, right? For me, I feel like I talk about this a bit, but for myself, it's like, physical touch is important, like just in little things, like hand on the small of a back, on the shoulder, like hugs, like that kind of thing. But there's also acts of service can be really important, right? But it's like where those are most important, right? Physical touch is not important at work. Physical touch is important at home. Physical touch is important in relationships. So your yardstick, right? I feel like I'm repeating myself. I'm sorry. It's very important. Yeah. And so the Hierophant is here. That the beginning, what I said at the beginning, the antagonist energy is the Hierophant and the Eight of Wands, right? That idea of like Hierophant in the streets. But I feel like this is really about you connecting to a higher wisdom. And it's moving forward connected to what you've always done in terms of like templating and programs with the Hierophant and institutions. I know that's more literal reading of the card, but I feel like there's a way that this affects the movement of your wand energy, your instinct, your creative capacity, your fire, your desire, your passion. Like that's where it's like, don't believe everything you've been told about who you should be. Because I mean, as a trans person, I can tell you that's bullshit, right? Like I was born into this world literally as myself, Charlie, but there was a template that was handed to me. And the greatest gift of my lifetime was saying, no, thank you, right? And it's not just with transness that we do this. We do this with, you should be this career. You should go to this school. You should do this program. You should do this job. You should do this. You should have this kind of relationship. You should marry this kind of person. You know, like in no way did I come here to adhere to templates. Like, you know, between, you know, being queer, neurodivergent, having, you know, experienced PTSD and all of this stuff, like these are beautiful gifts that don't highlight difference, but that highlight the capacity for something different and more, right? And to move beyond and to expand. So the Hierophant and the Eight of Wands in the antagonist position here, to me, are really about, it's like clearing the decks for yourself and allowing yourself to program from a place of intentionality, right? What's the main challenge here, Spirit? I get that there's like something to do with this yardstick. Yeah, Four of Pentacles again. It's like, I almost feel like these are all inherited templates, right? Like these are blueprints that you've inherited for a life, and you're deciding for yourself. You're deciding for yourself, King of Swords. You're deciding for you. That's the overcoming energy with great clarity. You don't have to overanalyze it. It's just there. You're like done and dusted. It's over in terms of you. You know, this is you wielding your sword as opposed to all of the ones that other people might have handed you, right? But I feel like when you realize that you've been investing your energy in specific blueprints and templates that have kept you stuck and playing small, because that's what this tends to be, is like a withholding of resources. Why, right? Why? What is reducing you? If it has to do with your truths, this is saying that you have an opportunity to stand in your power here. You have an opportunity to know yourself as powerful as opposed to shrinking into something different, right? The King of Swords doesn't hold that sword for nothing, right? The journey of the swords and through the swords are sort of the story in my mind of the becoming of the court cards. That's like where you journey through and you stand in your power. You stand in your power, right? And this is also the articulation of your truth too, because the swords are not just thought, but to me, it's also the spoken word. So it's you saying, these are my boundaries. This is what I want. This is what I'm very clear about this. And you'll find that the drama that surrounds the articulation of your needs is there to the extent that you allow it. Now, before people run away with that and they're like, meh, this is about, I've experienced this where like when I'm clear about my boundaries, they're not really in question. The drama comes from when I'm not sure, when I'm uncertain. And drama just meaning like having to justify or over explain or say, no, this, and saying, oh, I got this and this is why. No, no, like you just don't have to do that anymore. Because it's how you're overcoming the challenge, right? Yeah. What are we awakening to here today, Spirit? What are we awakening to? What you actually want to invest in by virtue of you being clear. That's beautiful. Possibly also the difference between things that nourish you and truly help you grow and photosynthesize emotionally, as opposed to situations that drain you, right? That drain you of your energy and that drain you of your energy and capacity to invest, right? So I feel like you're waking up to what is most important to you, and you're kind of going all in, which is amazing, right? It's an amazing energy to see. Main theme here. This is understanding that you deserve it. This is overcoming obstacles that you've kind of, again, it's like borrowed truths, right? It's like borrowed truths, things that you've been templated with. And I think the main theme is overcoming those, because you're understanding that you can walk into this church. This is the story behind it, right? Like, you can walk into this church. You're not necessarily locked out in the cold. The way I see it is, this is within a village. This is within a town, within a city, where there are buildings you can go into. There's always a library, right? It's part of why I so love them. But I'm saying, though, like, there's always something more. You just have to stop looking down and look up. Whoops, I hit the microphone. I'm just so dramatic. It's like my Sagittarian hands. And it's talking. Anyways, but it's like, when you realize that you're not locked out, you don't have to, it's like you unlock something different. It like realizing that the locking out has been maybe of things that aren't working anymore, which, hooray, we're locked out of things that don't work, that don't fit us anymore. That can feel uncomfortable and like you're being locked out of something, but that's your ego kind of pitching a fit, because it's not ready to let go and to let God. It's not ready to let go of the old. So these yardsticks that you can start to work with and tease out what it is that you actually do want. Even just writing down like what's important to me to experience at work, and doing this at different intervals also helps to reinforce where you're headed in your career. It can reinforce and also help you help other people, and help other people help you, because you're very clear about where you're going and what you need. So I'm just going to clarify this with one more card. Yeah. Woo, there's a lot of ace here. So we have the Ace of Cups and the Star that were on the bottom. And this, I'm beginning, it's like, it's beginning. That's interesting. That was, but you know what? That's where it's like, this is the stuff that's most meaningful to you. Whatever it is that you're either working on or working towards, there's something that's deeply meaningful here that stirs your heart in a way that makes it curious. Right? It's not just about the wand here, right? This is part of your refusal. The wand shows up and that's like desire, and you're like, ugh, I don't know. What this is a beautiful restoration, actually, not restoration. Restoration? I don't know. It's a restoration of what your heart knows to be true about how much you can give of yourself while still holding a full cup. Because when we have templates and programs that don't serve us and don't fit us anymore, that cup empties. It empties real quick, right? Because you're not filling it from a place of authenticity and sincerity. Like, there's always a part of you that's left out. Right? When I started transitioning, I was terrified. It was fucking terrifying. Some days it still is. Like, when I see only 2 bathroom choices, there's a part of me that sweats, because I'm just like, okay, please, for the love of everything sacred, just, like, okay, Spirit, we're going to have a good experience no matter what. Like, and that can be terrifying. And that can, if you let it be, like, you can go through this mental list where you're like, okay, that's a reason why I shouldn't be myself. That's a reason why I should hang on to this truth. And a lot of it has to do with fear. You have to reorient yourself in the direction of knowing that you have the capacity and the power, that you have the ability and the skill, and the knowledge from past experiences, right? You've survived 100%. This is a quote that I saw online, but you've survived 100% of your worst days yet. And this is something else that I actually printed out at one time and held on to. Like, I didn't come this far just to come this far, right? So sometimes you have to get to that place. It's very survival oriented, so I wouldn't recommend staying there. But sometimes you have to remind yourself that this isn't your destination, especially when you're in this transitional place where you're moving through a pattern, when you're breaking free of a pattern, and there's new ground being laid. New flooring, I'm hearing. Maybe somebody's getting new flooring. But that's where it's like the knowing without knowing isn't just about book smarts or knowledge, as much as it pains me to say that. Calling myself in there gently, but that's where you sink into this temple of knowledge and knowing within, because before you're able to recognize the structure outside, before you're able to find that security and stability outside of you, you first have to honor your need for it internally, right? And that's, I think, one of the biggest lessons for me of this year is that when it comes to your root energy, you can have the most beautiful structure. You can have the most beautiful foundation externally, but if you haven't built that internal foundation first, there will always be holes in it. There will be holes in it. It's like you can have a beautiful boat, but if there's holes in it that drain it, in certain kayaks you have like the plugs that you can put in, but sometimes it helps to drain the water if it gets in while you're paddling, right? So the holes aren't always a bad thing, but it's important to recognize the vessel that you're in too. But building up your foundation is important. It has to start in here, though. Where's your sense of security and stability with the world? And I know that trans folks and queer folks, we've had to work on this. So 2S LGBTQ+, for folks who are uncomfortable with queer. But we've had to work on this a lot, right? Because we live in a world where, in the States with different Supreme Court things, like rights are in question. They've just been always assumed to be a thing, but like rights are in question. And what? But this is where that stability has to start within first, because the world isn't always going to be the best mirror of your deserving and worthiness if you rely on the templates that it hands you, right? Because it doesn't connect with, nor does it really honor you, and you deserve honoring. And again, if we look outside of ourselves, it can really throw us into this place where we don't want to see. And because we're in survival, but this is about moving through survival and out to the other side of it. And that's where you start to be able to trust ideas. You start to be able to trust yourself. Your foundation is much more secure and firm. And that's also where it's like your foundation is not what you put your faith in outside of you also contributes to how secure you feel. Crackling voice here. What you put your faith in outside of you cannot just be, buildings, right? Because this is also a building that you get locked out of, right? You can be, this is, folks who are locked outside of an institution. Maybe it's a theme. Maybe that's something that's actually, oh God, I don't want to think about that. But maybe that's something that's coming. And I know a lot of people are preparing for this anyway. Which is an unfortunate place to be in energetically. I feel for my American friends who I really do, with that. But it's like, maybe that's what this is about, is like, you have to trust not in the things that you've put your faith in for a really long time, right? We saw that with the pandemic in terms of economic institutions and the structures that we've always thought were super consistent. We know shakeups have happened. And I don't think this is about looking at the ones that are to come. But I think this is about looking at the ones that we can choose differently, right? The star isn't a particularly choosy card. But I get that there's like what you can pour yourself into and empty into, right? Pour and empty, water bearer energy. It's like how you can guide with that. What are your leading principles and values? And that's the restorative energy that sort of heals this split that can occur. And I feel like this temple, this is a lot about institutions. So this could be, there could be something coming this week. I don't know. I don't typically want to clarify like this, but Spirit, can you tell me a little bit more in terms of numerically if this is anything significant? The Empress, so 3. It could be like a harvest, or like harvest season could be now, 3 months from now, because it's the 3rd card. Culmination of, I thought about the culmination of Queen energy, and this could be something that happens in December around New Year's, or a New Year's celebration. So it could even be Diwali, which is in October 24th to be specific. So it could be something to do with that, and that would track with harvest as well. Interesting. So I guess it could be a voting season, maybe in the States. I know that in Southern Ontario, where I am, municipal and regional elections are taking place October 25th, which is kind of a bummer that they did it on a religious holiday, which is Diwali, but it is what it is. unfortunately. But so it could be something to do with elections in the States and how there's something that might be more protected, but you have to, it's like this action that you're taking. So this, not to be overly political, but like the star is here and it's Aquarian energy. So like collective good. It could be voting in your own best interests and those of others. That's, I mean, that's all I can really say about that with the energy that's here. But it's about your inner peace and inner sanctum. Really, it's like you're identifying your inner sanctum and your inner peace for you, as opposed to what other people have said you should or should not. So I'm just going to get a couple cards to clarify here, because this energy is quite clear and I don't want to overdo it, because then the cards start mocking me and I just, it's ridiculous. I'll start to pull like the same of things as if Spirit's like, haha, right? I said what I said. Sometimes it's repeating energies, but then other times it's like the deck is like, oh, I said I was done. Spirit, can you please clarify this energy for me? Case in point. Like this many cards just came out and this was on the top. It's like the deck is like, I'm done. So I'm going to honor that. And that's, so just to summarize though, on the bottom, the star again, right? Repeating energies. Yeah. But this is, I think this is a time of choosing, and maybe the collective energy, the stars showing up twice. This could be like a collective choosing, right? The blueprints and templates that we've been handed every election season and every election cycle, we're invited to choose differently. We're invited to move beyond what we know. Perhaps we're a little bit unsure because we don't know how the future will play out specifically, but there's all these new ideas that can come up. There's like innovation, there's movement forward. So what are our guiding principles, and how is the external institution that we're connecting with, how is our movement to an alignment with those, our trust in, what are we putting our faith in? It's an antagonist energy, so it's like calling into question what was, not because antagonists can't be redeemed, but this is an energy that could be, right? This is the potentiality of that. So it's like when we align with the inner, when we align inner with outer, that's where this sort of eruption of light can take place. And maybe this eruption of light, it's like, I hope it's not that kind of eruption of light in the negative. It could be, I'm seeing now like a volcano. I don't like that energy. It could be something along those lines as well. But I mean, that's really catastrophic, and I don't want to, Spirit, can you just clear that? Thank you. It could also just be like, it could be more so an eruption of light, where the alternative to that I'm seeing is like that scene in Harry Potter where they hold the wands up and the light clears the dark, right? That could be just as much. And that can be like that kind of eruption of light. Like that's the it doesn't have to be destructive. That could be the other interpretation of it. Yeah. I was seeing like underwater earthquake or something like that. Yeah. But again, it's like underwater meaning emotions too. Like what's most important? That's okay. Spirit, what messages do you have from this super attracted deck for my daily creatives? Okay. Well, it's the deck that won't shuffle. Come on. The universe powerfully responds the instant I realign with love. Yeah. The instant I realign with love. Doesn't this look a whole lot like this here? The instant we realign with love. And that's kind of what a miracle, A Course in Miracles, is like. A miracle is a moment that you change your perception of something, right? In essence. And that I had a blog, and that's like, this is something that I'm working with in terms of, but the loving instant, right? And that's something that you'll see here. That's something that I'm working with to put on this channel. So it's kind of like this baby of mine that I've been working with for years. Yeah, but I had a blog, and I had the website and everything. But it's that loving instant, right? It's the instant you realign with love, the moment that you choose love over fear. In fact, that was the tagline of the blog, right? The moment that you choose love over fear. And, I think that the A Course in Miracles talks about it in terms of a holy instant, which they both are. But it's like that moment where you choose love, the moment where you're able to and ready to. And I feel like there's something here about being ready to. This reading is so long. Oh my goodness. Thank you for watching so far. If you're still watching, I appreciate you. Oh my goodness. Okay, one more. When I make joy a priority, brilliant ideas will come naturally, support will surround me, and movements will form. Very, very Aquarian energy. Maybe this is like about choosing joy, like electoral joy. Choosing electoral joy. Like, what would that look like to choose joy at the polls? That's a thought for you. But nonetheless, I'm going to leave it here, my friends. So again, big choices, but I feel like this is a call to listen to your inner light. Your inner sanctum is calling. That might actually be the title of this reading. But if this resonated, give it a like and subscribe. I'd love to have you on the channel if you are not here already. So please do give that a like and sub. But if you are joining from my subscriber base, thank you so much. It brings me so much joy that you're here, and I really appreciate you. So thank you for that. And as always, wherever this finds you on the time-space continuum, morning, afternoon, or night, I hope it finds you very well, my friends. Take care.